Yes, we will be starting in a minute. Thanks all of you for being here so promptly after lunch. This is a great sign of your interest. So thanks again for that. Okay, so welcome. You're in the right place. And we see still some other colleagues, some other participants joining. You're in the right place, of course, if you want to be in the knowledge session one on redesigning for a circular plastics economy. So hopefully that's the session you wanted to come, and nobody's going to leave the room. This is the better session, of course. That's the one you choose. Was I allowed to say that? Anyway, so thank you and welcome everyone, welcome dear participants to this first knowledge session after the lunch. Well, hoping that all of you are as energized as I am, not just by the lunch, but by the discussions obviously this morning. We heard really interesting insights, particularly also on the last plenary that we heard on unlocking circular business models to tackle plastic pollution. We heard about the things that we need in terms of the policy, and hopefully we will hear a lot more about that now. We heard about the needs for finance, of course, for the finance industry to come forward. We heard also about other things like standards and more nitty-gritty. So now we would like to work on this session on the type of systems change that we will need. And we heard also about this systems change, the need to change the paradigm in the keynote speech this morning, but also in the following session. So what is a systems change? We need to address the causes rather than the consequences of the problem, right? We're not addressing the symptoms, we want to go to the root cause. And in order to do that, we need to transform any structures in the system that are not working. And this can involve policies, practices, power dynamics, social norms, the paradigm, the mindsets that we have. So we need to help in shifting these mindsets, and that's kind of the first step that we need to do, because we're talking not just of redesigning specific products, we're talking about redesigning the economy, and in order to do that, well, we will be talking about many different levels today. We have great experts from industry, experts also helping policymakers on what do we need to redesign in the systems. So we will be hearing about them, and we hope that this session will help you bring in other thoughts, inspire interactions that you will be having later on during the coffee breaks, during the lunch breaks, during the field visits later this week. And particularly also we want to have that interaction today. So we will be having an initial panel discussion, but I will also be inviting your questions later on. So have them ready, get prepared, and we'll be opening it up for you. But before we actually start with the session, I would like to, and before I invite the rest of the speakers, I will not be on my own here, of course, you see all the chairs already ready. But let's get started with a very short video that brings us a very strong message.
Once upon a time, plastic was fantastic.
The possibilities of plastics are endless. Radio and the telephone depend on plastics.
But something was wrong with this fairy tale. There was no happily ever after.
Use it, throw the rest away.
There was only ever after.
Our grandchildren will not see the end of it.
The problem is, we're now addicted to plastic.
Plastic on an industrial scale.
Mass production, mass production, mass production.
So it's time to eliminate unnecessary plastics and redesign products to reuse, repair, and repurpose.
The challenge is clear.
Now wouldn't that be fantastic?
So the message is clear, I hope. And with that, now, yes, please let me invite our speakers to the podium here, or to the floor, to the couches. I will be asking each of the speakers, so, well, if you can all come, so Dr. Molly Gia from the Elmacat Foundation, Dr. Vasimon Ruanglek from SCG Chemicals. We will have one panelist as well online, Norma Schönherr. I'm sorry, Norma, I didn't practice before with your surname, so I'm probably saying it wrong, who will be joining us from Leipzig, and also Elisa, co-founder of NIL1. So welcome all. I will be asking all of you as well to briefly introduce yourselves better than I would have done when you take the floor. And please keep your initial interventions as well very short, so we can have more time for the panel discussion itself. So first, Molly, if we can keep it more informal. From the Elmacat Foundation, we would like us to hear a bit more about what Elmacat Foundation is doing as well in terms of informing policymakers and how you're taking that on. Thank you. And we will be passing the mic.
Thank you, Mila. I will give a brief introduction about what Elmacat Foundation has been doing in the past few years, and that will fit in some content for later on panel discussions. Perfect. And this is now, okay, perfect. So Elmacat Foundation is a UK-based charity, and we work mainly to make the society transition towards the circular economy. And this is the work we have been doing for years. We started this initiative called the New Plastic Economy Global Commitment. We started the global commitment with UNEP together in 2018 to ask companies and organizations to join us, sign signatories, and set commitments, ambitious commitment for 2025, and they need to report every year about their progress. And for now, the global commitment already united about more than 500 organizations around the world to work towards a common vision, which is the circular economy for plastics. And the companies, businesses in the signatories represent about 20% of our plastic packaging usage globally. And in last year, 2023, it's already more than halfway through the journey towards 2025. So we decided to have a dig into our reported data and also looked into what have done and what we can learn for the future. So we published the 5-year-in report about our learnings and our challenges. I'm not going into details for all these numbers, but basically it's showing that what we have achieved and what we see is big challenges for us to work towards circular economy. And in the right side hand with numbers, it's a table, and that's the achievement we have done. And you can see the green numbers, which is the top graded signatories around our signatory group, and they have done a lot of achievement towards circular economy for plastics, reduced problematic and unnecessary plastic packagings, and also increased the plastic recycle content usage, and also increased the plastic recycling in general. And on the left side of this table, the red part is the global market, and in comparison, you can see the signatory group already surpassed what happened in average in the global market. So we have seen that with our voluntary efforts, we already achieved quite a lot, and it's a good kickstart for progress. But we still see like we have a lot need to do to actually tackle the plastic pollution. And we actually identified 3 big challenges for us to work together, especially working with policymakers and also all actors in the value chain to make it happen. So name it, it's the 3 circles on the left is to scale up reuse and to solve the problems for flexible packagings, and also to have more infrastructures to make it circular. So infrastructures for reuse and and also infrastructures for recycle. And as the last slide, I just want to emphasize that we always say when we talk about circular economy that design is the key and crucial part for make it happen. I believe everyone have learned a lot this morning about design, and we supported a lot of work to raise circular design awareness in different groups, and this is the work we done with Global Alliance on Circular Economy and Resource Efficiency. And this is a policy briefing developed to inform and support the ongoing INC discussions. And we emphasize that circular design include not only design for recycling, which people already heard a lot, but also include many other aspects. It include design for reduction and optimization. It includes design for reuse and prolonged use, and also design for repairable and refurnishable. Of course, it also includes design for recycling. So basically, they say it's something we designed, we supported to develop in the past a few months, and it's already published. We can talk more into details later on.
Absolutely, and we'll get into more details indeed, and that's fascinating progress as well done by business signatories in particular, I heard. But then on all those challenges, and perhaps I'm just going to ask you a very quick question, if that's okay now. So for these challenges that you're seeing, have you been already thinking and pushing from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, what type of policies would you think are more important to scale up the impact that you're already seeing from the voluntary commitments?
Yeah, what we see is, as people already seeing from the slides, voluntary action can do a lot, but apparently we have some bigger challenges we need to deal with. And the three we listed, it really need a systematic change. So it need every actors in the value chain, that includes governments, NGOs, financial institutes, all work together, coordinated to make it happen. So we always say it's important to change the system rather than just change one element. And when we talk about coordinated action, that needs clear policy to inform the directions to go. And we talked about the harmonized standards and the harmonized legal framework and the policy framework that will all help to make all this happen.
Excellent, thank you very much. I think that was getting us to a very good start. So let's move now to our next speaker, Vasimon from SCG Chemicals. Okay. So please, if you can introduce us the work that you're doing from SCG.
Right. SCG is also a member of Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And of course, we did pledge, and of course, we changed the target by increasing from the amount that we already announced. So SCG Chemical is one of the business unit under SCG, which is Siam Cement Group. It's a Thai corporate company that in Thailand, and we do have the business in chemical, which is a polymer. And if my slide, okay. All right, okay. And then the SCG Chemical is producing the resin of polyethylene, polypropylene, and polyvinyl chloride. So these polymer is something that's also needed. And at the same time, we have to try to manage them better, as we know now. So, and also SCG also focusing on the sustainability, which is the heart of our company. So the sustainability, we're focusing on the ESG 4+, which is sustainable on the environmental, social, and the governance. And focusing on the theme right now is on the low waste and low carbon. Of course, as we try to make the polymer, and we change our portfolio by moving towards more of the green polymer, to support our customer, and of course to serve on the sustainability angle. So I just want to introduce just this chart for SCG Chemical.
So thank you, Vasimon. And then just a question for clarification. So you mentioned the green chemical and moving to, green polymers. So what do you mean by that? And how are these contributing to low carbon, low waste? And perhaps also adding on that, so we're hearing of the need to change the economy. What is the position of a chemical company like that, like yours, in bringing these things back into the cycle.
That is one of the first elements, which is the product design. And we focus on the green polymer, which comprising of 4 categories. The first one is the reduce, which we try to make the polymer perform better. We still keep the feature of the performance while reducing the use. For example, we can do it like 30%, which means if you reduce it by weight, it means like you use less plastic and of course less energy for transport. So that is the value that we transfer to our customer. And the second one is on the recyclable. So we change, as you hear about it this morning also, we also make the polymer, instead of the multi-layer, it can become a mono-layer. And of course, all of this can be enabler in terms of recyclable. Besides this is also the performance and the amount of the polymer itself. It can improve more and reduce the CO2 emission. Okay. And the recycle, as we try to use the feedstock, which is the waste plastic. So we need to have the tool and the innovation in terms of processing. So that's why we enter into the recycle business, not before, because we have to understand it and understand the cost and everything there. And now we also make a move on exploring on the renewable side, which means the bio-based feedstock, like using the sugarcane sources and turn them into the polymer, like the same polymer that can still be recycled, because we want to keep the recycle part and support a lot on the circular economy. So, and of course, the bio-compostable is also a part of the portfolio. So we see that these are very important in terms of the transform of the portfolio.
Excellent. Thank you very much for the clarification. And well, I'm glad I asked because there was a lot behind that green. And before we continue here, let us just move for a moment online. So I would like to bring in Norma Schönherr from Leipzig. She's the Manager of Partnerships for Sustainability. So Norma, please, if you can continue presenting yourself and tell us a bit about what you want to bring today. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. Good morning for me. Good afternoon for you. Thanks for the kind introduction. I'm joining you from Austria today to present how Lenzing, as an industrial company, is trying to be part of a solution to specifically the microplastics problem in a value chain, I would say, adjacent to plastics. So we are a fiber producer. We produce regenerated cellulosic fibers based on wood. I'm representing specifically the nonwovens business, so everything that goes into personal care products, into industrial applications as well. Here we have developed a couple of good practices and potential solutions to reducing, diversifying the material base for some applications that I would like to show today. Let me see if we can manage to share my slides again. So I'm keeping this very brief. What I would like to focus on is our contribution to the microplastics problem that is just as pervasive as the macroplastics that we can see in our oceans. I think we have technical sessions on this event where this is introduced as well. So we're talking about particles less than 5 millimeters in length that enter the ocean and other water bodies when plastics polymers break down. And we believe that one way of preventing this is using fibers made from alternative sources that are fully biodegradable. And our fibers made from wood can be part of that solution, we believe. I would like to show you two applications to illustrate what I mean by that. One application specifically from the nonwovens field is geotextiles. So you might be aware that geotextiles are textiles that are used to cover parts of the land. In our application, it was a glacier to prevent melting. They can also be used to prevent erosion on ocean shores, for example. And they're usually made from plastic polymers. We developed one that is based on cellulosics, is fully biodegradable, and doesn't shed microplastics when it's exposed to the open environment, thus contributing to preventing microplastics at source. So this is one application that where we've tried to be part of the solution. The other part I would like to raise is the personal care product space, where we've collaborated with a value chain partner to develop a fully industrially compostable diaper, where much of the usually synthetic fibers are replaced by our branded VioCell fibers that are fully cellulosic and biodegradable and thus can be composted, which is frequently a difficult endeavor because of the performance requirements, which are very, very high for these kind of things. So you don't want leakage, you want good absorption, you want good distribution of liquids, and so on. So being able to replicate these performance criteria with non-plastic fibers is something that we work on very, very hard as well. So we believe these needs-based solutions to redesigning products is where we can make a contribution to reducing plastics pollution, to diversifying the material base we have for products that cannot be easily replaced. And we are also very keen on building awareness of these problems among consumers who use these products, specifically in the personal care space, because frequently they are not aware, at least in Europe, as far as we know, of the composition of a lot of these products. And they're very complicated in their construction. They're frequently hard to recycle or expensive to recycle. So we believe a partnership approach, a multi-pronged approach based on innovation, working with others in the value chain, and finding new ideas, new needs-based solutions, new alternative ways of doing things are an important part of this. And we, as an ingredient supplier in the value chain, are obviously placed very well to help develop such solutions, but we need partners to do it. And I would like to keep this for later if it's needed.
That's very good.
And just stop right here because I think that's enough input for the moment.
Thank you. Actually, I was very keen on seeing that last slide, but I was going to ask because, of course, you're presenting about products that essentially, yes, are complicated to recycle or are replacing products which are complex to recycle by moving into things which are fully biodegradable. But the question is, so how, and building on the point that you're making about partnerships, do you see a role for your company also to help, for instance, build on the necessary, I mean, we've heard a lot as well this morning about the necessary infrastructure, the necessary system to collect, to then dispose of, in this case, in composting facilities, to dispose of these type of products?
Yes, I think my point here in terms of infrastructure and waste management would be that if we want to diversify the material base and if we want to get away from plastic solutions where it makes sense to replace them, then we also need to enable disposal options for this. So compostability, biodegradability is great. And I think a lot of companies, startups, research institutions are working on this. But we do not yet have the infrastructure to collect this, to make use of this great product feature at the end of life. And for example, use the compost that comes out of such processes. So we have products that can revert to nature and that can be become useful materials again in the biocycle side, so not in the technical recycling side, but in a biocycle. But we also need to work on enabling that. And I think that is sometimes overlooked when we talk about infrastructure for revamping the plastics economy. If we go towards biodegradable products, then we also need to make sure we have the infrastructure to make use of this.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for those thoughts, Norma. So now, last but not least in our panel, we have Elisa Lai, co-founder of Nil1, a company focused on recycling using used fishing nets collected here in Thailand to create recycled nylon. So please.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. I would like to introduce Nil1, which is our initiative in recycling used fishing nets collected from local fishing communities in Thailand, and we recycle them to make nylon yarn, fabrics, and apparel meant for more eco-conscious brands and consumers. And our goal in helping to tackle the issue of ocean pollution is by creating a market for high-value recycled nylon. And through this method, we're able to then offer more financial incentives to fishermen to stop collecting, to stop discarding, and then collect the used fishing nets to sell to us to recycle. So this is an overview of our recycling and manufacturing process. So the process begins with the collection of used fishing nets. Our recycling facilities are located in Chonburi, Thailand, which is in close proximity to the fishing communities. So our fishing nets are collected from Chonburi and also surrounding provinces. And then we clean the fishing nets and we undergo the process of mechanical recycling to produce nylon pellets, which can then replace virgin nylon pellets. And then the pellets are spun and texturized into fine nylon yarn and then finally knitted into nylon fabrics and then finished apparel like bags, shirts, and many other textile products. So we are currently the only vertically integrated manufacturer in Thailand that is able to undertake all process of recycling and yarn production in-house. And this entire process takes place in Thailand, so we're able to then reduce the carbon emissions that might arise through cross-country transportation within the supply chain. So our goal is to work with brands and consumers and manufacturers that share the same vision as us and believe in creating a market for high-quality recycled nylon products in order to, at the same time, reduce the carbon emissions from virgin nylon and also to reduce the fishing nets that might end up in the ocean. Thank you.
Apologies. So what I've understood, you're mainly working with nets that are discarded but on land. Are you also working on fishing nets that might be recovered at sea? And if that's not the case, or even if that's the case, how do you think that can be incentivized? So there's also kind of this problematic, the lost fishing gear. I always forget the whole acronym, but
Yeah, so for us, we want to work and create a system whereby fishing nets are collected before they end up in the ocean. So we want to create that system and put that system in place because once the nets end up in the ocean, there are a lot of contaminants, whether it's debris or whether it's organic contaminants that are in the fishing nets when they're recovered from the ocean. And so that is harder for us to recycle. And so our project is really to create a system whereby nets are collected even before they end up in the ocean. And yeah, so mostly we are working with used fishing nets and not the ones that recover from the ocean. It really depends on the quality of the fishing nets that we're able to take back.
Excellent. Just a hint, any kind of quick ideas of things that you think could work to provide these incentives as well to bring in or to ensure that they are not lost in the ocean, or that they are recovered soon enough so they don't become too
Yeah,
contaminated?
so based on our discussion with local fishermen, one of the reasons why some of the fishing nets are discarded at sea is really more social economical, and it's really the financial incentives, because it is costly to bring all the nets back to shore. And while they are able to sell the fishing nets, the used fishing nets, the price that they're getting for it is not necessarily high, and it doesn't create sufficient financial incentives. So what we aim to do is that if we're able to recycle the used fishing nets and to create higher value products, then we are able to provide additional financial incentives to the fishermen, and it creates its own cycle in that way.
Excellent. Thank you. That sounds promising. So let's move now more to a kind of a debate discussion, more of a panel. So I will be asking also to keep the interventions very short, also mine. So that's a reminder to myself. But let's go again through all the panelists. So Molly, starting with you. You've been working in the Almaca Foundation, and certainly the Almaca Foundation has been working for many years in how to transform economy in general, but the plastics economy in particular. Are you seeing progress, particularly in how people understand the circular economy, the different actors in the value chain, and what are the key challenges or hurdles that we still need to overcome there?
Let's start with good things. If people remember that second slide I just showed, when we started the global commitment, we set like a specific targets and a framework for signatories and organizations who want to commit to work towards. So it includes elimination of problematic and unnecessary packaging, and the group of people agree on what is problematic and unnecessary, and they work on that. And this actually already have an effect on the industry. So beyond the signatory group, we have actually elimination things like PVCs in the packaging, and EPS or carbon black in the packaging. It's become a norm in the industry, not only inside the signatory group. So this is a good side effect. And also the demand for recycling contents, the recycled plastic, is already increasing around the world, we can see. So these are all the good achievement which is beyond the small group, about 500 organization group we have, and it's already becoming like an industry, not standard, but it become a agreement around the industry to work towards. But what we see is, even for this good achievement like post-consumer content and the recycling materials, that still need a stable market. So there is a market start emerging already, but we need a much more stable market to make this bigger and to scale up. And to scale up, this really require policy to work towards. And the policy will set a clear signal to the businesses and the industry. This is the direction we want to travel, and this is the right solution we want to work with. So so we think that a policy signal is very important for all this to happen and scale up.
Excellent, thank you, Molly. And I think that was also already opening quite a lot of questions as well for, I think Vasimon, I mean, what are the incentives for, you already presented what SEG is doing, but what are the incentives actually to make your products more recyclable? And maybe we heard some.
Yeah, so if I can also have the slide also on the number 5. Okay, I think it's like the incentive that some, for example, like from the New One project, the incentive like that is, we could call it a buyback thing. So the buyback is something that if we can provide the buying power to pay, but then it has to come with the premium on the other end, like from the market side, that from the customer. Like my company also, we have to work in collaboration with the customer, depend on their need, and try to see if there's a premium. As in Thailand, incentive in other way just yet. But I think it's very important to create such kind of incentive in order to provide along the value chain. Like this slide is about the product design, as I mentioned already. But then the value chain designs, as we are very important, that we have to collaborate by, for example, some project with New One that SCG also in collaboration with. And of course, in other projects like we work with Home Pro or some other company in order to look into the chain of collection and try to reduce the cost within those and work together, which means like it has to be a kind of a rethink as a we think. Like we have to think together and redesign in order to make it incentive on that and share the benefit. That is one of the things that we can do by ourselves first. But then of course, that is the example as it shows. That is our project with Home Pro and also with other company as well. But then we can do more and we can talk about the finance later on.
We'll get there for sure. So we've heard policy, we've heard incentives. Going back again online, Norma, what other required enables or for these specific ones that we've heard, what enablers do you see for the systems change? And perhaps also if you can bring in more the role of lensing, how can you work more in redesigning the plastic economy to reduce plastic pollution?
Yeah, thank you for this question. I'm an institutional economist by background, so I kind of tend to think that we need to get the institutions right. The institutions in the market, the institutions in terms of governance and regulations, but also in terms of, well, we like to call them consumers, but let's just say people. I think what we've heard from all the panelists market-wise, so also for us as a company, the issue is getting full costs accounted for in products, cradle to grave, creating markets that are actually ready for products that are alternatives to the cheap and easy plastics that we're used to in many cases, because they're not cheaper. The third part is enabling maybe also the financial investments to scale up solutions that are there. So we've got a lot of design and technical solutions that are there and ready to go, and they're having a hard time scaling. So I would say these are the challenges in the market. Regulatory, I've already mentioned, the waste management end could definitely profit from a regulatory environment that helps enable good end-of-life solutions for compostable, for biodegradable materials in products. And in terms of people, what we see, especially in personal care products, but also in other, end consumer products, there's a need for education on proper waste disposal. For proper waste disposal, for transparency about product compositions and what's in there. So I think we cannot just say we have to nudge and choice edit consumers, and we cannot overwhelm them with information, but consumer education, I think, remains a very important part of the equation to shift.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So mentioning consumers, and maybe let me segue to Elisa. Speaking of consumers, how are your products being perceived and how are they being received as well by consumers? Is there interest that you see out?
Yeah, so we do have a lot of interest from brands both locally and internationally. We do see brands being more eco-conscious, and they are trying to find different ways in which they can change the materials that they're currently using and to replace it with something that is more eco-friendly and more sustainable. And so our project is also partly driven by the demands from brands and consumers as well, which I think is very important. And so I think another consideration is also that Currently, with recycled nylon, the cost is a little bit higher, right, than virgin nylon because of the complexity in the recycling process. And so brands also need to understand and really try to work with us because obviously it's more costly for them to switch to a more sustainable material. But I think but we see that brands are willing to accept that and work with us on that. So I think that's something that that is something that is really helping with our project. And so in terms of another aspect is that with recycled nylon, obviously there might be some differences between the virgin nylon and recycled nylon in terms of the qualities that we can achieve. So brands also need to accept that. For instance, with recycled nylon from fishing nets, we're not yet able to achieve, let's say, white yarn, right? So because of the dye that's already in the fishing nets. And so it's also about educating the brands on certain limitations of recycled nylon and also having brands willing to accommodate and help us on that.
Excellent. So you've touched on many things here. And of course, we've also heard from Norma. So cost is obviously super important, and maybe
Yes.
we're not getting there yet. You've mentioned also issues perhaps around the quality or the properties that might be different, maybe not better nor worse, they are just different.
Yeah.
But then why do people accept? Have you perhaps been also informing all of this with, I mean, we were talking about LCA and I'm an LCA guy, so I had to ask this question, and I'm going to ask it a bit for everybody, but how are you using scientific evidence on, or kind of backing up your product, saying this is actually better? So yeah, maybe it's a bit more expensive, maybe, the quality is different, but it's better. Are you using this type of information?
Yeah, so we were definitely using this, our studies on LCA within our process and also relying on existing research and literature as well. So the reason why we chose mechanical recycling for our process, as opposed to chemical recycling or other types of recycling, is that it uses lower energy and it is, I guess, easiest and least expensive to implement. So in that way, we're able to replicate this process elsewhere within Thailand as well. And so we are educating brands on this, and I think it's important to have transparency so brands understand, what exactly they're buying, why is it more expensive. I think if they understand the process that we have to go through, then they'll understand, okay, it is more expensive because, used fishing nets and post-consumer waste is harder to recycle. And so hence the price is more. And so once they understand the process, they're more willing to accept the higher cost.
Excellent, thank you. I'm going to ask more or less the same question if any other panelists want to intervene, but just after that, I'm going to look at the audience if there's any questions. So please have your hands ready to jump up. So I don't know, Vasimon, Norma online, Molly, in terms of the studies, the scientific backing that you're bringing into the table.
Okay. Can I also have the slide number 15? I think LCA is also very crucial, but then LCA has to be added once it's been a leakage into the ocean. So which means like LCA has been used in our product all the time at the moment. So we have to review the LCA and understand the, I think number 15. Yeah, that one. So for the LCA itself, it's something that we need it as a kind of a standard in order to review that how better we already doing in terms of making the polymer. And of course, if you want to use it in a different thing, and it could be a part of when we're talking about the incentive or redesign some of the finance, I think it might be a very important information that we need to use and use for justification. So I show this one just to mention a bit about the financial that will link to the data. So because we're talking about the financial thing, how can we earn more? It means like we have to recover all the recycled material. We have to develop an upcycling model just like new one. And of course, you have to make it up to a standard. But of course, in that, it will be a money flow in terms of the revenue. And LCA will help in order to justify that one. And of course, the market itself is already addressed on the market part, and of course, the policy. That's what we need in Southeast Asia in order to help on incentivize on that. But more is also, if we have some kind of model like collecting and buying back, because we know that that is where the cost is. That's the additional cost that we see. Because the rest of the process of polymer is go through a similar way. It's cutting short, especially for the mechanical recycling. So it is the lower LCA than the advanced, of course. And that is the collecting part. And if we can utilize more on the digitization in order to track and trace and share the value across the value chain, it's something that is a part of a benefit that we have a technology this day, but we have to know how to utilize. And the rest is just a co-design as a value chain, as I mentioned earlier. We have to understand how we can share the benefit and how can we share the cost in order to make a better solution for the world, something like that, and of course, some additional benefit. Definitely agree on the LCA.
Excellent, thanks. And maybe I'll have some news to share as well later on the methodological developments. But Molly, you want to chip in?
Sure. I'm glad you brought up LCA. I think for all the companies who is working on the circular economy, they have a sense to tell customers and tell people and policymakers that they are doing better for the environment, and how to prove that. Basically, number-wise, it's about reduce of the energy use and carbon emission reduction, and sometimes it's the virgin material reduction. And basically, I think that's all the numbers they can use to prove that's good. And I do feel like there are limitations on the LCA. I agree with LCA principles, but especially for things like reuse, it's very difficult to assess it, if it's a better thing comparing to the single-use plastic systems under the current setting, because there's not enough numbers to assess the whole thing, and we don't really count about externalities when the plastic going into the environment. So if it's going into the ocean, how that affects the biodiversity and how that affects the environment itself, and also how that may affect the tourists and other possible income for the community there. So all that things are not able to be calculated in the LCA process. I do hope that one day there can be some methods and the data we can calculate that, but I just want to keep everyone that in mind that when we talk about LCA, there's only limited numbers we can talk about, and there are a lot of other factors we can't really count in when we speak of them.
I see that glass half full. So I think there's more things in than out, but we had the discussion as well this morning about the limitations, and indeed that you need to complement with things. But that's great. That was super useful. I don't know, Norma, if you want to add, because we're running out of time. Otherwise, we can have other questions later, but please.
Yes, please, just very, very quickly. I would just like to agree with Molly there. I think we started doing LCAs on our fibers back in 2010. I haven't been that long with the company, but that's the earliest I could find. But our limitation, as for many other companies, is we can do them cradle to gate. So we can do them about our fibers. We can compare our fibers with other fibers to see, how we perform in comparison. But we cannot compare products. So we cannot compare what happens after with the finished product. So this limitation of not having an idea about, the whole life cycle of an individual product is definitely a severe limitation. So our approach is, and maybe this is also a good practice that others share, is to also use alternative research collaborations, other methods of checking, that our environmental performance is maintained also in products, and that we can substantiate any and all claims that we make about, the environmental performance of our fibers, or of any other product, with certifications, independent testing to the best extent possible. I think this is essential in this space, and LCA is an important part of it, but it's not the whole story.
Definitely not the whole story. But that was very useful. And indeed, I mean, that's actually something that is super important that we sometimes forget. A life cycle assessment study that doesn't include cradle to grave is not a life cycle assessment study, because the life cycle goes from cradle to grave. So that's an important element that we often forget. And people present studies that say, oh, this is my LCA up to the gate. No, sorry, that's not an LCA then. So that's an important element. Thank you so much. Questions from the audience? I have one online, but if there is a question ready from the, yes, just in front here, please. Go ahead. And introduce yourself briefly. And, yeah, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Wong Pui Yi. I'm from Malaysia. I work for Basel Action Network, and we monitor the transboundary movement of plastic waste, among others, electronic waste as well. Allow me to play devil's advocate here. So our main concerns about plastic now is, number one, microplastics and nanoplastics that's absorbed through our skin, that's getting lodged in our arteries, that could be causing heart disease. Number two, chemical additives in plastics that has been shown to affect our metabolism rates, our hormonal systems, our reproduction rates, behavior in our children. So how can this circular economy, does circular plastics even exist? Because research has also shown that chemicals will be recycled into recycled pellets, and not just chemicals, but also whatever that the containers were containing, for example, pharmaceuticals or pesticides. These were recycled into recycled plastics. So how does LCA and circular economy address this? And secondly, recycling. In order to have a circular economy, you need to recycle. But we know that a lot of the countries who have such perfect collection systems and sorting systems send their waste to our region, who is less able to manage the waste. I've been looking at recycling facilities in Malaysia for the past 5 years. I can honestly say that it's almost 0% that any recycling factory does not cause microplastic pollution or leach it into the surrounding areas. There's so much rubbish coming over that cannot be recycled, that is dumped. And even if they can be recycled, we already know that they will cause microplastic pollution. So what kind of plastic circularity are we talking about when the solution, recycling, causes so much pollution? Thank you.
These are very important points, and I think we're going to cover that. Is there any other question? And then I'll read the one online, and we're going to address three. Okay, so over there.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Roberto, and I work for the Malaysian Recycling Alliance. Just one point from Vasimon. What I would like to get is some insight on the experience your company has had so far on chemical recycling, and is your intention to integrate chemical recycling more in your production facilities moving forward?
Thank you. That's short and crisp. And now I'm going to read the one that my colleagues have shared from Parina Prayubong, and hope I pronounced that correctly. So in short, and that's kind of a summary of the question, it's what are the possibilities for focusing on the design at the production stage before moving to the production and consumption side? So that's kind of the logic of design. How are you incorporating these elements before? So three short questions. Can we have some short answers? Who wants to jump in first?
I can start. I have the mic, yeah. I just want to address that question. So when we talk about circular design, we start with design for optimization and reduction. So it always comes first. We want to reduce the use of plastic rather than create a lot and then recycle the whole thing. So I hope so that's why we are developing this framework for circular design, and hopefully it can be included in the later discussions. And it's always coming with design for reduction, design for reuse, and design for make product be repairable and use longer, and we can keep them in the system longer, and then it might become waste, and then we do recycle. So that's the whole circular system we are talking about. It's not about create a lot of single use and then we we recycle everything. And also about chemical of concern, it's actually interlinked with product design as well. So to make the product circular, one important principle is to reduce the use of chemicals, concerned chemicals, and there is one element in the treaty negotiations is about addressing the chemicals of concerns. So hopefully we can remove all those concerned chemicals and make the products more safer. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Wanting to address your specific question or any other thing, please?
Yeah, I can address her and him. Okay, I think as the chemical, we don't have it now, but not for the future. I think everyone is trying to change. For example, like changing to the right ink or the plasticizer that we use or the additive. So it's ongoing and it's gonna change for better, because I think we believe more in terms of protection. We don't want anything to leak into our environment. So that's why. And of course, some of the leakage that the circular economy is still needed. We cannot ignore them, because I think all the solutions are needed. Just like the event here, we have the sea of solution. So that's why everything is needed, right? So we have to try to develop and be patient and try to do more and more, even more after the treaty as well. Yeah. And of course, for the chemical recycling, we have integrated them in our process. We do have a small capacity in Rayong, has been improved them and try to utilize them. The chemical recycling is the thing that we sometimes can reach to the wider application, because otherwise we cannot make some type of plastic material. But then we have to utilize all the byproduct and everything that is also the key. So we also plan still to use them, because there's a need from the customer in terms of some who really need some kind of processing thing.
Excellent. Elisa, Norma, anything that you want to add?
Yeah, sure. So I think the theme here is also the involvement of various stakeholders within the supply chain. And one specific comment I'd like to make about my own project in terms of recycling fishing nets is that the design also comes from the manufacturers of the fishing nets as well. And so one of the limitations or obstacles that we have would be recycling nets that are made from many different types of plastic, nylon, PP, PE. And so, and then it becomes important for the manufacturers of fishing nets to design a way in which they can mark or label the fishing nets in a way that we're then able to identify the materials that it's made from, which also makes recycling the entire process more efficient. And so I think that's why design also becomes important from every stakeholder within the supply chain.
So collaboration as well at the design phase among the supply chain, that was very useful. Norma, any final thoughts, because we'll have to be wrapping up.
Yeah, final comment regarding microplastics avoidance. Of course, the easiest way is to avoid plastics that can fragment into microplastics. So again, I would make the point for diversifying into alternative materials where it is feasible and where it makes sense. Not every piece of plastic can or should be replaced. Let me also be clear on that. But where it is feasible and where it makes sense, I think here's also the collaboration point again. Materials providers like us, brands, converters, and other stakeholders need to work together to find new solutions that meet the needs for which these products are needed. So design, I would say, very important, but I would also like to stress again that we cannot think design as an isolated topic. So we design for biodegradability, we design for recyclability, we design for less leakage, easier management at the end of life. So we design for something, and we need to be very clear what this for is. And this means that we have to really think in integrated life cycles. We cannot get around that. That would be my final point.
I think thinking in an integrated way makes a lot of sense, and I think actually also as a former, that was kind of going back years ago, but as a former teacher of, I refused to be called the eco-design teacher, because I was saying good design is good design. If you design things properly, you think them in advance, you're going to resolve all the problems on the economy, on the environment, on biodegradability, toxicity. So that's what you need to bring in forward. And I think it was interesting also to hear that this is not just the matter for the manufacturers, it's not the matter for the policymakers. We need the collaboration of all the actors at the design phase to design for the economy, for the design for the world that we want to see. So hopefully that's kind of a message that we can all agree on, hopefully. And with that, we're just 1 minute past. We have to close the session because there's another session that is starting, I think, right away. So again, I would like all of you to join me in warmly thank our panelists today. It's been fantastic to have this conversation, and we hope that this has also inspired many conversations at the following breaks. Thank you. Yes, and coffee is what we're having now. Thank you, Maria. Thanks for reminding me.